Hey everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, joining you here today for your Week 6 game day preview for NC State football. They are set to take on the Campbell Fighting Camels of the Colonial Athletic Association. Sorry, the Coastal Athletic Association, formerly known as the Colonial Athletics Association, an FCS opponent down the road. Their law school is actually here in Raleigh, so definitely a lot of in-state connections. It'll be NC State's, East Carolina, Wake Forest, Duke. It'll be NC State's fourth in-state opponent in 2025. They'll have one more, obviously, at the end of the season with that matchup against North Carolina. But as we do every week on our game day preview, we will run through stat projections and predictions, some key storylines for the game, a score prediction, bold predictions, and worst case scenarios. So let's get started here with the stat predictions. And I really only did the NC State side here just because who knows with this Campbell team. It's an FCS school. You just don't know how they're going to perform against a Power Five or Power Four opponent. So let's start with the quarterback, CJ Bailey. I think CJ played as well as he could last week against Virginia Tech, given the pressure that he was under constantly. NC State's pass protection had a complete collapse in that game. Really, really rough showing for that offensive line. So Bailey was under siege and didn't turn the ball over, but took 5 sacks. So I expect them to keep him upright. And he goes out for a ho hum 280 yards and a pair of touchdowns in this one and just gets the job done in a blowout win over Campbell, which I'll get to eventually. I think getting Hollywood Smothers back confident will be a crucial goal for Kurt Roper and the Wolfpack coaching staff. I think there was some frustration with not being able to get the running game going against Virginia Tech, who did have a better defense coming into that game than I think a lot of people gave them credit for in terms of just who they had played. They had played a Vanderbilt team that really inflated some of those rushing stats that I kept bringing up, and I was wrong. I was dead wrong about that team being able to stop the run. So I think Smothers gets back on track this week with I got him pushing towards 150 yards in this one and a pair of touchdowns. I just think this is a game where he could have two explosive plays that cover that entire number if the blocking is there. So I think Smothers gets it going early and they ride him relatively aggressively throughout the first half, and then it becomes a passing game as the game moves on. I think Terrell Anderson continues his hot streak, comes down with 5 receptions for the 60-ish yards and a touchdown in this one. I just think he's kind of developed into one of Bailey's most reliable wide receivers outside of Justin Jolie. I think there's some comfort and there's certainly some significant skill, especially with him coming over the middle and making those catches with his long arms. And against a FCS defense, I tend to lean towards a guy like him who's more of like a body freak than a speed freak, if that makes sense. Because I could have gone with a guy like Wesley Grimes, who's super speedy, or Noah Rogers, who's super speedy. But Anderson's physical traits, to me, stick out a little bit against a team like this. My last stat prediction, I think Will Wilson gets in the end zone here for a touchdown, and I'll talk more about him in a little bit. Storylines for the game. NC State's going to be without a lot of pieces on the defensive side of the ball as those injuries keep mounting up. Linebacker Kelvon McBride is going to make his debut this season. He's back, and they're going to be without Sean Brown at middle linebacker. It looks like they're going to be without Jackson Vick again at nickel. That could change, of course. We don't get availability reports because this is not an ACC matchup. So that is something to monitor for sure. The two guys that'll probably have to step up at linebacker in this game are LaCorian Hodge and Kevon Carter, who have gotten playing time over the last couple weeks. They've been on the field for special teams throughout the season. These guys have, according to Dave Doran, been part of the two deep and kind of been part of the plan all along. I think they're probably getting thrust in a little bit sooner than NC State would have liked them to. But these are two players that played high school football in Texas, which is, that's probably the closest you're going to get to college football at a lower level. So they've seen a lot of football already, and if there were two players that are probably the most prepared for the fires of the college game, it's these two backers. Like I said with Smothers earlier, I think getting the rushing attack going for NC State is really important to just the confidence of this team and the comfort of Kurt Roper going into this stretch against much stronger competition. So I think getting that O-line blocking better, like they did against Wake Forest, and not like they did against Duke and ECU and Virginia, where even though Smothers put up big numbers, they still struggled at times. So I think getting that O-line to that top level in the run blocking game is really important to this NC State team, and I think that's something they try to establish pretty early on in this one. I again regaining that confidence. You got really tough opponents coming down the line. You got a trip to South Bend, Indiana next week to face Notre Dame. This is a prime opportunity against an FCS school to sort of rebuild your confidence and, get some good feelings for this NC State program before they play three ranked opponents in the next 6 or so weeks. Finally, my last storyline is they're going to have to contain Mike Chandler the second. He's probably going to be one of the most interesting players that this NC State defense faces all year. This is a kid who's played quarterback. This is a kid who's now playing wide receiver and acts as sort of a wildcat option for them. But as Dave Doran said, he's not really a wildcat because he can throw, and he's proven that he can throw in the past, both at Lamar and at Campbell. This is a guy who's been around for 5 years. He's played FBS competition in the past, so he's seen a lot of things thrown his way, and provides Campbell with a really different option that they can throw at a pretty diminished NC State defense. So containing him will kind of be the key if NC State wants to make this sort of a defensive dominant performance that they really need confidence wise, as I've said. Um, so that'll be something to watch for sure. I'll do the bold predictions first, and then we'll do the score prediction and worst case scenario. But my bold prediction is that Will Wilson and Lex Thomas both get some playing time in this one. Two backup quarterbacks get some action. Wilson's obviously already been playing in that Wildcat formation or Wilson Cat, Will Cat, whatever you want to call it. But Lex Thomas hasn't gotten any reps yet so far. The Wolfpack haven't had that blowout win quite yet. And I think if this goes the way that I think it does, they both get in the game. And then my other bold prediction is I think freshman receiver Teddy Hoffman hauls in his first touchdown of his young career. Had a really rough game against Duke and Virginia Tech, and I think he turns things around in this one and figures some things out. My worst case scenario in this game is that NC State just has too many injuries on the defensive side of the football, and that finally catches up to them, and they ultimately cannot, go and win this game emphatically, and then maybe that puts them in a place where they can get upset here, which I think is an extreme long shot given the state of this Campbell program coming into the game 1-4, already been blown out by ECU. So because of that, I think NC State wins big. I think NC State wins 42-13. Just because it's really imperative that Dave Doran, with all the talk about noise and scrutiny from the fan base, I think it's really, really imperative that NC State wins this game emphatically, just to sort of quiet some of those doubts and go into the Notre Dame game with a little bit more support and good feelings from the fan base, or else things are going to start to get really dire around here moving forward. That's all for our game day predictions here on NC State on SI. If you want more content, feel free to follow me on X at Senate Tucker. You can also follow the website's X account at Wolfpack on SI. And you can find daily episodes of the NC State Insider podcast on the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel. Episodes every day. We'll have a post-game recap for you tomorrow night after the game at 2 o'clock p.m. So stay tuned for that. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.